Oh, hello. So if you are with me live, welcome. And if you're watching the replay afterwards, I hope you enjoy it. Trust you'll enjoy it. So today, I'm going to be talking about something to do with persuasion. That is in many ways common sense, but it may be something that you're not fully aware of. And I've got 3 ideas for you today. So the idea is it's about thinking with your body. So my first question for you is, what does your brain do when you hear the word pepper or see the word pepper? And by the way, I'm also very happy to take questions at the end, or so feel free to put comments in, and I'll check the comments and the chat at the end if you would like to ask me anything at the end of today. So you've thought about pepper. What about grasp or hat? And all these words, what they're actually doing is activating more than our hearing. So pepper is activating your taste circuits. Grasp is your motor circuits. Red is what comes to mind. Oh, interesting one. Yeah. Hat is your visual circuits. So they're firing up not only the words, the language, but also our different senses. And this is very important for engaging and persuading people because it attracts attention. So this is what's called grounded cognition, and it used to be called embodied cognition. And some people still use that. I've used that for many years, but they're now saying, look, it's actually more than even just your body. It's also the environment that you're in. So I'll talk about that as well. So that it's moved now towards more being called grounded cognition. So this idea that cognition is grounded in our body and our external environment, it plays into that as well. So here's the basic definition, is that it's linked to our physical experiences and how we interact with the world. So let me get to the point. Why does this matter? And why it matters is that when we try and persuade other people to do something, and we are persuading all the time, it doesn't actually matter whether it's socially or at work or even in our family, we are going for persuasion. So when we try and persuade people to our way of thinking, to act on our product or service, or even our opinion or idea, there are threats. There are threats to our receiver, the people that we're trying to persuade. There are threats to their time and money and social status and the effort that they need to make. And the most important threat, according to behavioral science, is the threat to their attention. And when you think about it, this makes sense, doesn't it? If we can't get people's attention, which is even harder today, as we know, because of everything going on in the world, there's so much happening, trying to get people's attention. I mean, what has it gone down to? A soundbite used to be 40 seconds, I think, back in the 1980s, and it's now about 4 or 5 seconds. So, we are shrinking how we focus on things. So this ability to gain attention, everything that we can do to help us to get that is going to be beneficial. And that is what today is about. So whatever the person that we're trying to communicate with or our audience pays attention to becomes important to them. Makes sense, doesn't it? So therefore, understanding how people process messages in their brains gives us new and powerful lenses to make sure that we can improve. So today we're going to look at 3 ways to apply grounded cognition. One is through the words that we choose to use, and I had some of those earlier. The second one is perceptual priming, and the third one aspect of perceptual priming, and the third one is the memory cues, for if you need to be presenting something and you don't have full notes, or you can't have everything on your slides, or you don't have slides or notes, to help you with this as well. So let's look at the first one. And I'm looking at the chat here. Sergeant Pepper, yeah, nice one, Ilya. Good one. Words is that we want to be using concrete and or sensory language. And let me explain what that looks like. And it's something I often talk about with clients, is that when we are concrete and when we are specific, rather than being general, it is going to have a greater impact for our audience. So being concrete means we're being very specific about tangible things in the world. And this makes it easier for people to understand. So to give you the examples here, there's a huge difference. I mean, when I suggested to you just one word would fire up circuitry, and it would. Something like hat fires up whatever you're experience, most recent or previous experience of a hat is, is what will fire up in your brain. But we can also help, if we want to, by using specifics. So for example, if I say yappy Pomeranian versus dog, sorry if you've got a Pomeranian, they're gorgeous. I don't mean anything badly about Pomeranians. It's just that they can be quite yappy. And so that gives you an immediate, more tangible, you might be able to hear the yapping, you can see the dog. It's much more specific and your brain lights up. There's more real estate that is being used in your brain. You're going to be more engaged, you're going to pay more attention. Green tea versus just a hot drink. You can see here the being very specific. You can see this person, even though you've no idea where they were, what they were doing, but if they emailed the client at 9 a.m., your brain latches onto that in a stronger way than just saying, oh, she communicated with the client in the morning. And that doesn't give us enough. So it's more abstract. And of course, a lot of what we talk about, particularly for example, on LinkedIn, there's a lot of things that go on in the world around leadership, for example, is a very abstract concept. So just to think about leadership or targets or strategy, that doesn't actually mean anything until we bring it down a few levels in terms of the nested hierarchy of how we think. And when you go lower in the hierarchy, we go, okay, we can actually see that. So yes. Yappy, says Christy. So the first thought is the concrete. And then the second one is the sensory types of words, which appeal to the 5 senses. And I'll give you an example of both together in a moment. And these evoke experience and emotion. And the goal is that the audience can feel or imagine that experience. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're a writer or you love words, then you'll be fully on board with this one. Also marketing, I'm sure if you have anything to do with marketing, you'll be right on top of these particular ideas. So these are examples where I'm sure as you read them, heels clicking sharply, the velvet was soft, you've got that lighting up in your brain. The touch part of your brain is also activated. There's also another fascinating area, which is that because we are engaged more with things that are applicable to our own body as well, that has a high impact. The first one, that idea didn't sit right, generally has more impact for us than that argument had a solid foundation. Even though it's tangible and concrete and it's sensory, we can perhaps see a foundation, but doesn't sit right. Yeah, that person is a cold person. All of these sensory words, she's very warm. There's something about that person I don't like, they're cold. So there's that one. And then there's also scouring the website. So that's another example. Now, scour is a much stronger word than read or go through. So if you were looking for a job and you're like, I need to go through the website to actually make sure that I've got their language, I'm looking at their values, all of these things. Oh, thank you, Bogdan. That's very nice of you. Lovely to hear from you. If you go through the website, you don't want to be just thinking, I'm going to go through it. If you're talking about it to yourself or describing it to somebody, or I was suggesting it to you, I would say, go and scour the website. And when you hear the word scour, you've got touch going on, you've got movement going on, potentially sound, even smell. If you associate scouring, as I do, with scouring the bath or the shower screen, the scouring actually brings up the smell of the cleaner that I would use. So do you see how it's kind of engaging so much more of our brain? And this is just words. So this is an amazing, amazing way of thinking about it. And the main difference between the two is that concrete language is what something actually is. It's tangible, and sensory language is how something feels. So you can have concrete, but not sensory. So Toyota Corolla, you can maybe picture it. If you're in Australia, you can probably picture a Toyota Corolla or something similar to it parked outside. Or if it's sensory, but not concrete, then you can almost sense or taste that acrid smell, but you don't know what it is yet. So it's not concrete in that way. And the point of this is, where there's an overlap, is that good writing or speaking combines both. Now, not all the time, and don't panic, because this is not about being flowery or adding lots of adjectives or being overly descriptive, because that would be very weird and it definitely turns our audience off. It's just thinking about if something around this matters to you and you have messages that are important, then this is worth considering, particularly at the opening or the close. You know how important those two parts are. You know, when you're starting out with your opening messages, at the end, you want them to take something away, maybe a call to action. If you think about the exact words and think about how you might be able to fire up more of your audience's brain, the words, they can really help you. That's the first idea for you. And let me give you a final example. And this is a particular case study, and I'll show you where it comes from in a moment if you're interested. But it was about using customer service and concrete language. And so they had over 1,000 interactions, and they found that using this language, customers were more willing to buy, they would buy more, they were more satisfied. And this is something like dealing with customer service representative either online or in a store. Even things like saying, I'll walk into the back and see if I can find it for you. Walking was better than I'll go into the back. That actually had greater impact. But even more interesting is the more specific the salesperson or customer service person was, the more the customer felt that they were listening. So if you were saying to somebody, absolutely, like if I'm talking to somebody about my different programs, and I'll say, look, if you're interested in Speaking Breakthrough, I will send you more information on that very specific program, and I'll talk about the program, but I'll name it. I won't just say this program. So being very specific, and they found with the customer service that if they said, oh, absolutely, you're looking for that gray shirt in a size 8, and they would repeat it, I'll go and find that shirt for you, or I'll see what we can do to get that shirt in for you. That was what made the customer, make sense, think, oh, this person's actually listening to me. And therefore they were happier because they felt acknowledged. And as we probably know, the very first thing we need to do is feel acknowledged. And certainly if I'm dealing with somebody online and I don't feel acknowledged or heard, yeah, it's not going to be as good for me. And I may well move on or not buy from them. So this whole idea about if we listen, we feel more attended to, that's the language. So actually homing in on the language, if you are communicating with clients or you're selling or something, be very specific about their own wording. And there's more to this around using their metaphors and things, but which we won't go into today. But here's some thinking around this. So this was this particular study, if you are interested in looking it up, 2020, I think it came out in 2021, and they're talking about one standard deviation. Now, if you know statistics, you know more than I do around that, but it's basically saying that just simply increasing concreteness by saying, you know, your gray shirt size 8 versus just it is going to improve that satisfaction and spending. And those are big statistics. Now, while that's only one study, there are plenty of studies like it about how to get our brains primed for being sold to, whether that, as I say, is a study on a service or a product or just an idea, a cause that we might have. Okay, so let me move on to the next one. And this is priming your audience for what's about to come. And it's about using visual priming. So perceptual is affecting our perception. So it's called perceptual priming. So what do these next images have in common? I'm going to show you 3 images. Now, I'll be honest, if you're looking at this on your phone, you may not get the full impact of this. So if you're looking at it going, what's the connection between the 3 of them? That may not be so clear to you. So I will explain it as we go. There's your first image. So have a look for that for the moment, particularly the first, perhaps what the glass is sitting on. The second one, how cute is that? It's a snowy owl, that expression. And then the third one, this was me in COVID. My partner does photography and he took a photograph and we were exploring different photographs because let's face it, there was not much else that we could be doing at that particular point during COVID. And the point to notice about this is, if you can see it, that there is steam coming off the hot drink. And this is shown to show warmth, and people love it. So even Campbell's soups, when they redesigned their labels for their soup cans, they tested, and some of the cans, I think it was chicken and tomato, there was a potato or something, that they actually put the steam, and people liked it and they bought more as a result. Don't know if that's still the case, if they've changed it, but that's what they did have. So if you can see the steam, so here's what it is. It's texture. And our brains are designed to respond to texture. And it doesn't matter whether it's imagined texture or visual texture online, or whether it's in person. It's to do with our survival, because texture was very important. Like the texture of something, like as an example, if meat was slimy, you didn't want to be eating it. So texture was very important. So the point about the texture is that if you've got something that you want the audience to look at on your next slide, you want to prime them on the previous slide, the current slide, with something that has a high degree of texture. And this is probably going to mean that you need high res images. So as high res as you can possibly go to really show that texture. But what it does is it sharpens the viewer's brain up. And so you look at it and your brain's just more engaged and more interested. If you think about it, you think about texture in your own world. There's always a thing about, I know my partner laughs because it's about when I go into shops, I'll go and feel clothing. No, he doesn't do that. I don't know if that's a gender thing, but he does make a joke about it, that I'm always going kind of feeling fabrics and things, but I don't even need to feel them. I can actually look at them and imagine them. And it might not even be necessarily important, but we pay attention to it. So the goal is, if you've got something on your next slide that you want your audience to pay particular attention to, make something textural on the slide they are currently looking at before you click to it. And I'll give you an example here that I was talking about scarf, which is a leadership concept, and also a way that you can think about organizing a presentation with these social threats and rewards in mind. And so here was the main thing. So you can see that I have put behind it the texture of a scarf, and on a bigger screen, it has a lot more impact. And then on the next slide, which I'm not showing you today, I then went into the detail about what scarf was and why it mattered. And then we got locked into that. But they were engaged more because they went, not only has the slide changed, and I'll come to another thought on that in a moment, but there's also this aspect that you're seeing it differently and your mind sharpens up, and there's something textural about it. Yes, Cher, that owl is pretty cute. I know, when I saw it, I went, yes, that's brilliant. Okay, now the third and final idea that I have for you today about grounded cognition is to use it. And this is a bit of a different idea for you. So the first two have been how to communicate externally for your audience, to engage them with the texture and the perceptual priming, and then previously to think about, okay, what are the words that I can use to engage and to persuade? This one is more about you and helping you out internally. As I mentioned earlier, if you need to be speaking and you want to help your memory out, and it's great if you've got an exam coming up, it's great for children, anything to do with exams and helping people to remember things. So this idea is that there's context-dependent memory, that's storage and retrieval, because our memory is like this filing cabinet where we're encoding information. That's the encoding is when we first engage with the information, and then the retrieval is then when we then try and get it back and remember it. So storage and retrieval are influenced by the environment in which we learn or practice recalling that content. So this is quite a big idea. If it's not something you've ever thought about or known about before, well worth looking up. There's a lot on this, and it's something I work on with clients. It can be incredibly useful, that where you prepare for something, if you couple it to things in your environment, it can help you to learn, recall in a much stronger way. So this contextual information surrounding the event is also stored. And if you can recreate that context, I'll give you examples in a moment, it can help to trigger your memory, and it will help your memory. That is the whole idea behind this. So the first idea I have for you, I've got two today, and there are more, but here are two really crucial ones that can make a big difference, is matching. And you may have heard this one before, you may already do it, this idea of preparing, and certainly as a professional musician, which was my original profession, you would have a run through. In fact, you would often have two run throughs, because it was by the third one that you realized that you actually had ironed out the challenges. But if you were having a dress rehearsal, literally, in this case, you would be putting on the outfit and certainly or the accessories that you plan to present with on the day. Because they then become, not only do you gain comfort and you feel like, oh, I'm not doing this for the first time, but they also become part of your sensory context. And so if you wear a particular aftershave or perfume, or have something burning that you know, in a good way, that sounds ridiculous. What I mean is incense or something similar, or a candle or something, that you're then going to be, if you're presenting online, let's say, that you could actually have that same thing going on. And you learn with that fragrance, we know how much memory is attracted and relates to fragrance. Like we smell something from our childhood and the memories come back. So this is an amazing one, just using smell. But also the same, you can wear jewelry that's specific to this. You might have a specific outfit. And so when you then feel the texture, going back to texture, when you then feel that outfit, or the scarf or the jewelry that you're wearing, it helps to unlock the content that you've previously learned while you were wearing that content. So not only dress rehearsal, but as you're actually learning the content in for your final goes through. And then the second thought I have as an example for you is that you can leverage slide backgrounds as memory tabs. Now this takes some practice thinking time, and this would only be for something that mattered a lot, but if it matters to you what you're doing, this is very, very useful to suggest doing. So you could have something, now I've said slightly differently, design each slide slightly differently. I went the textural one with the scarf in the background, that was not slight, that was an obvious one. But you can just slightly alter something on a slide, and if you learn that in, then you can start to practice. And as you go through your slides, assuming that you're practicing going through your slides, if it's important, I'm sure you are, then you will be associating key ideas with each tweak that you've done with that slide. So it's color or pattern, background pattern. Something could be very subtle. If the color slightly changes or the pattern changes, or you move where something is on the slide, it immediately is going to load and trigger the chunk of content that you practiced on that slide. So if you've never thought about this, it's a really useful technique. And there's more to it, but these are two very useful ideas. And I'm stressing this because I know I've been through some big ideas for you today. All of these can really make a difference. Okay, so to sum up, and I'll show you in a moment the three things that we've covered, that this thinking that we do, it doesn't just happen in our heads, it's linked to physical experiences and how we interact with the outside world. And so my question to you is, as we close off today, can you apply one of these things? And note that things is meaningless. So as I say it, I go, no, not things. Don't use things, can you apply one of these choices of words, perception, or memory in a new or different way? That would be my goal for you. And I would love to know what you think. If there are any comments, or if you've stuck around and would like to ask me a question, feel absolutely free. We've still got a few minutes. But I will finish, and I will comment as well that I am very happy if you'd like to contact me, you'd like to find out more about any of this. This is the type of work that I do, and I go into as much detail as you want on any of this. plus there's more. So if you would like to message me, DM me, look at my website, anything that's useful for you, then of course feel free to do that. Love to hear from you, even with comments or thoughts from today. And I'd also be interested to know that I'm coming into I'm going to be in Sydney. I am being distracted by chat now. I'm going, oh, Sarah, no. So I am coming to Sydney, and I will be in Sydney. I have some space on Tuesday, the 2nd of June, and Wednesday, the 3rd of June. Would only be half a day maximum. But if you are in Sydney and you'd like to meet me, either for a one-on-one session, or if you'd like a short workshop or half-day workshop for your team, I know it's not long to go now, but sometimes these things can work out. So I'm mentioning that as well, if that's of any interest to you. So thank you, Andrew. And thank you for saying that was really interesting. I'm glad you found that interesting. And yes, brilliant. Thank you so much. So if there are any questions, I'll hang around. I can't see any coming up, so I don't think that there are any questions. So I'm assuming that that has been helpful for you, and I will say bye for now.